Okay, so we're going to go ahead and work on the application for business loan form. So probably the biggest question that I usually get on this one is what to put here for the company name. So if you're buying a business and you're going to do an asset purchase, you'd want to put ETBF, which stands for entity to be formed in this section. And then DBA, so doing business as whatever the business name is that you're buying. So if you're doing a stock purchase or if you're just looking for debt refinance or something like that, you would actually put the business name in this section. So if you haven't formed the entity yet, or you don't have the business already set up, then you would just put ETBF. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just to kind of remind people. And that's typically what we see on asset purchase transactions. So let's go ahead and do it this way. And for telephone number, typically for this, you'd want to put your phone number. So you could put a cell phone number. Email address would be an email address where we can get a hold of you. Tax ID. Now, if you don't have a tax ID number already put together, you would go ahead and type in to be determined here. If you do have a tax ID, as if it's a stock purchase or if the business is already formed, then you'd want to go ahead and put that there. Now, address. Now, this section, you can put the business address for where the business is that you're buying, or you can go ahead and put a mailing address that would work for you so that we can mail anything out and we can always change that later. This portion here, so basically the SBA is keeping track of some of the information that we collect. So you'd want to answer yes or no, and also if it's women owned. Now, this portion here is not extremely important to get perfectly right. You can go ahead and try to fill it in the best you can. A lot of people just leave it blank, or you can even put, the purchase price here for total project cost, put how much you plan to put down, and leave it there. Same with collateral value. It's not a big deal. We'll typically pull that information off of, some of the other information like your balance sheet and personal financial statement. Now on the affiliate section, so this would be any business that you own 20% or more. So if you do, you want to list the name of that business, when it was formed, the tax ID number, and then your name here for the owner, and then the percentage that is owned from those individuals. You can just put your percentage, that's fine. And then they gave you 3 sections here in case you own 3 businesses. If you own more than 3, there's another form that basically has the same information that you would go ahead and fill out. From here, you're going to put if you had any other government financing. So keep in mind that would include an EIDL loan, FHA mortgage, any of that you'd want to put here. And of course, if you have any other SBA loans, you want to list it here. Then go ahead and sign. So we need the person that's borrowing the money that's guaranteeing the loan to go ahead and sign it there. And that's it for that one. Okay, next up we've got business application eligibility questionnaire. So again, the applicant business legal name would be the name of the entity, or if you're doing a stock purchase, would be that name. And if you haven't formed it yet, just put ETBF for entity to be formed. Now you have 2 boxes here you can check. OC stands for operating company. EPC stands for eligible passive concern. So typically it's just going to be an operating company. The eligible passive concern would be if you had a holding company, and likely if you're buying real estate and the business at the same time, or just plain real estate, you would use the EPC for the holding company. So you could check which one it is. So you would need to fill out a separate one if you have a holding company, and then fill out this one just for your operating company, which is the business that, or the entity rather, that's going to operate the actual business. So you would put the doing business as trade name. So if it's applicable, you'd fill it in here. So if you're buying a business and then you're going to keep the name of it, you would put that name here. Business tax ID, if you do not have the tax ID number yet, you'd put TBD or to be determined. And if you do, obviously put it here. Primary business address. Now this is going to be the address for the business after you take over the business. You'd want to put it here. Project address. So this would be if it's going to be something different. So if you're buying a building or planning to move, this is where you would put that address. Now you'd put the NAICS code, which would be the primary industry. If you don't know, you can usually look on the seller's tax returns on the top left. On most of the tax return documents, it should list it there. If not, you could ask the seller, or if they have a broker, what that actual code is. This would be the SAM ID code, so you would know if you have one of these or not. If you do, then you'd want to list it here. And then this would just be the year that the business started. So this is going to be the actual applicant. So that would be the business that you're using to buy if it's a asset purchase. So you would put the year here of when it was formed. Otherwise, if it's a stock purchase or you're using an existing entity, you would put the year that it was formed here. And then the entity type. So you would check which box here is applicable to the business for the actual entity that's going to operate the business. Put the primary contact name and email, and then of course the phone number. If there's any special ownership, so if it's an employee stock option plan, a 401k with a ROBS, if it's a cooperative, Native American owned, if there's any other, you could put here. So this portion, you're going to fill in the number of existing employees. So that would be the number of existing employees for the business currently. Number of full-time jobs that are going to be saved. So it should be at least the same as the ones here. And then new jobs, so that would be you and anybody else that's coming in, or if you're hiring anybody, you would list that here. So this question here would be basically what they're saying is the business or the individual that's applying, whether it's the operating company, eligible passive concern, or basically any other entities that you have, if they're presently suspended, disbarred, declared ineligible, excluded, so on and so forth, or presently involved in a bankruptcy, you would mark yes or no. Now this question is going to be fairly the same, but basically what they're doing is checking if you've ever defaulted on any government guaranteed loan program. So whether that's a current SBA loan, USDA, FHA, so on and so forth, even a student loan debt that was government guaranteed, you would mark yes or no here. In this question here, they're basically asking if there is any of the businesses that you're currently associated with or have ever been associated with, if any of those businesses have been, if you have other ownership in that business, I'm sorry, you would want to list the names of the businesses and what percentage you own of the business. This one would be basically if any portion of the business currently or is going to start doing any kind of exporting, whether that is directly, so you're selling to customers outside of the United States, or if you support companies that do. So if you make a product and you are selling it to somebody, then they are then taking it and selling it overseas or outside the US, or if they're using that product to manufacture something that is sold outside the US, then you would mark yes here. And then in the next one, you would put what percentage or dollar amount of the sales, and then you would list the principal countries that it's exported to. Now on this one, it says basically, have you ever paid a fee to put the loan application together? So even if it's not, if you don't have a referral source or a broker that is helping put the transaction together, you would still mark yes, because the bank ourselves charges a processing fee. And so the processing fee is to help put the loan file together. So you would mark yes here. On this one, you would just kind of simply go through the question. Basically, does any of the income come from gambling, lobbying activities, sale of products or services that are sexual in nature? Just read through these. If the business has anything to do with this, please mark yes. And if you are kind of questioning whether or not you do, please feel free to reach out and we can try to help answer that question. Next one is basically anybody that's affiliated with the ownership in the business have a household member that is an SBA employee, whether you're related to them or currently an SBA employee. So you'd mark yes or no here. Next one is any of the owners formerly an SBA employer that was with the SBA and was employed by the SBA within the last year. This one would be um, if you're anybody here has 10% or more, is a member of Congress or any member of the federal government. So basically, if any of the owners of 10% or more are involved in any kind of political affiliation, you would want to say yes. If you have any questions on any of these, whether or not it applies, please feel free to reach out and we can try to help answer them. Next one would be that if anybody in the federal government or the military is a GS 13 or higher. So if you have somebody with 10% ownership or more, or even if they are a partner, a manager, director of the business. So if anybody that's affiliated with the business that has some ownership or has helped managing the company is GS 13 or higher, give us a call and we can kind of go through that and make sure you're answering it properly. Next question would be basically the same status, but if they work for SCORE or any of the SBA advisory councils. Want to know if that's a yes or a no as well. Next one would be if any of the business or any businesses you're affiliated with or have ownership in are currently involved in any legal action, including divorce. Okay, so in this portion, you're going to list the ownership percentages of the actual business, whether you're forming it or it's already formed, that is looking to buy the assets, or is if you're doing a stock purchase. So basically the entity that you're using, you're going to list the names of each person, the percentage that they own, and what their title is. Now you would check these boxes if any of these apply. Typically they don't, but really what we're doing is looking for the ownership breakdown of the actual applicant business. So sign and date here, and you're all done. Okay, let's go ahead and go through the personal eligibility questionnaire form. So fairly simple, first portion here. Now remember, this is going to be needed for any individual that is going to own 20% or more of the business. So, or if it's somebody that's applying. So first portion's pretty easy here. First, middle, last, legal, personal name, social security number, date of birth. Now this main phone would be a phone number where we can easily reach you. So typically this is going to be a cell phone number. This would be an email, same thing. Email that you're going to use needs to be specific to you. So if you have two partners or husband and wife, you definitely want to have a different email address for each person. This is going to be your home address. So an address where you can receive mail. So do not put the business address here. This would be your actual home address. Place of birth. This is important because all of this information is going to get transferred over to an actual SBA form. It's a lot easier for us to fill it out based on the questions here and then have you sign it. So it needs to put your place of birth. Owner's position. So if you've already formed your entity, you would put your actual title here. So CEO, officer, member, managing member, any of that. Otherwise, you can always just put owner. That's fine. Fill in this information. So if you're a veteran, yes or no, basically would answer 1 through 4 here, or X. Gender, male or female. So M or F you would put here. For race, you would pick one of these. And ethnicity, same thing. Now, keep in mind that these do not affect whether or not the loan is going to be approved or declined. It's just for us to be able to track information for the SBA. Next down here would be if you're a U.S. citizen or if you were a permanent resident. You would mark either one of these. If neither one of those apply, then you would mark here and then put where your country of citizenship is. Now, there's only one question here, fairly easy to answer, but basically what they're asking for is if you are presently incarcerated, on probation, on parole, or subject to any indictment for a felony or any crime involving or relating to financial misconduct or false statement. So you're going to answer yes or no here. Now down here, you would list any business that you have ownership in, whether it's 1% to 100%, and you would fill in the name of the business entity, the percentage owned, and then your title for that business. Now you would also want to put the actual business that you're forming. If you haven't formed one, then you're going to put entity to be formed and the percentage that you will own, and then your ownership title, sign, and date. That's it. Okay, next up we've got the Regulation B notice. Basically what this is you're giving the bank the authorization to work on your file, to pull your credit, look at your background check, look at your financial information, all that good stuff. So borrower here, the applicant company, what you'd want to put in here again is if you're doing an asset purchase, you'd want to put ETBF or entity to be formed, DBA for doing business as, and then the name of the company. If you've already formed your entity or you're doing a stock purchase, please put the actual name here. And then from here, you would mark if you are applying for joint credit or if you're doing it yourself. So if you have a partner or a spouse or somebody else that is working on the file with you and is going to be applying with you, then you would mark that you intend to apply jointly. If not, if you're the only person on there, then you would put that you do not. So next you'd fill it out. Pretty simple here, name, social, street address, date of birth, and go ahead and sign it here. If you are applying with somebody jointly, you can put their information here as well. So it'd be typically if you have a spouse or a partner, you would go ahead and complete their information here and they can sign. If the other person is an individual that doesn't want to share this information with you, that's fine. You can put you're applying jointly and they can complete the other form themselves as well. So that's it for that one. Schedule a business debt. So this one can be a little tricky. If you are forming a new company and you're doing an asset purchase, you're buying the assets of another business, here you'd want to put the ETBF or entity to be formed, DBA, doing business as, the name of the company you're buying. Now, typically you're not going to inherit any debt when you're doing an asset purchase, so you would just simply put NA here and sign it. That's it. Now, if you already own a business and they're considered an affiliate, so you own 20% or more, then you'd want to fill this out in reference to the business that you already own, and then list all of their debts, the original date, the original amount, the present balance, the rate of interest, when the loan comes due, and the monthly payment, and then if there's any collateral. Fill this out the best you can. I know sometimes you don't know the original date or original amount, but you know the present balance or interest rate. Go ahead and fill it out the best you can, and then you would sign it and date it. Now, if you're doing a stock purchase, you would still put the name of the business here, and then you would put NA unless you are inheriting some of that debt, which you don't often see, but if you are, then you'd want to put the debts that you're going to retain here, and then answer the questions appropriately and sign. And then also, same thing with if you've already formed an entity and you're buying a business, you'd want to list the name of that business here, and then you would put DBA for doing business as, and then the name of the business you're buying, put NA, and then go ahead and sign. So it seems a little silly sometimes, but it is something that we actually need. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go through the personal financial statement. Most people call this a PFS or SBA Form 413. So on the first page here, not too important really to worry about, clicking on anything. Feel free to read through the information. But normally you're going to do a 7A or 504 loan, so you can click this box if you decide to, but again, not a big deal. I pre-filled a little bit of this for us already, but obviously you'd want to put your name here, home address, city, state, and zip. You put your business phone here or your cell phone numbers. Most people don't have landlines anymore. And then from here is where it gets a little tricky. So on the business name and applicant borrower, that's going to be the entity or company that is borrowing the funds. So if you're buying a business and you haven't formed an entity yet, you would just simply put ETBF for entity to be formed. Otherwise, you would go ahead and put the name of the company And of course, if you already have your business and you're not buying a business, then you would actually put the name of the business there. So again, if you don't know what the name of the business is going to be, you can put entity to be formed or ETBF. And then you would typically put DBA for doing business as. And then you would put the name of the company that you are buying or the name of the business that it's going to operate under after you buy the business. So we'll go ahead and put ABC Tacos here. You would put the business address if it is different than your home address. So we'll go ahead and put 234 Main Street, Dallas, Texas, and a zip code. Now you get to hear the business type. So you're going to want to put in either if it's a corporation, an S Corp, an LLC, partnership, or sole proprietor, which would just be an individual that doesn't have a business. Now, if you don't know for sure what you're going to put or what you're going to form the business as, then you'd want to go ahead and just mark what you think it might be, or you can actually leave it blank at that point. I'll go ahead and put an S Corp as that's typically some of the most popular. From here, information is current, so you would put today's date. So let's go ahead and put April 1st, 2024. And then women-owned service business applicant only. You could put married, yes or no. So that would only be if it's for a women's service-owned business, which with SBA lending doesn't unfortunately provide any kind of value at this point, so you don't need to mark that. So some of this stuff is fairly simple and self-explanatory, and some of it is not, so that's why we're going through it. So cash on hand and in banks. So this would typically be what's in your personal checking account. Maybe you also have some cash on hand, but keep in mind what you list here, you're also going to want to be able to provide information. So you need to provide the documentation. So you'd want to show what's actually in your bank and with bank statements. So let's go ahead and just put here 25,000. Now savings account, maybe you don't have a separate savings account or you just have a checking or something like that. You can, put it all into the first line, that's fine. But normally what you'd want to do is also put in if you do have savings here. So let's go ahead and put 20,000. Now next line would be for an IRA or a retirement account. So if you have a 401k, any kind of retirement, you'd want to go ahead and put that there as well. So let's go ahead and put 100,000. Now, accounts and notes receivable, not something we see a lot, but there are times where people maybe loan money to someone else or they've got some receivables that are coming to them. I've seen lots of times where somebody may have a bonus that is due to them or they're waiting for some form of payment on something. So you could go ahead and put something there for that. Now, this is one that a lot of people get wrong, and that's okay. It's fairly confusing. So for life insurance, the cash surrender value only. So that's really key. So you don't want to put the actual balance or the full policy amount for the life insurance. This would only be if you actually have cash surrender value. So not a lot of insurance policies actually have this. If you do, then you would actually put the amount here. If not, it is not the policy amount. Now, stocks and bonds. This would be anything that is publicly traded. So something that you can go onto your account right now and sell and receive funds. This is not your value in your privately held business. So you definitely would not want to put here if you own a couple other businesses personally. If it is not something that is publicly traded or something that you can sell on the open stock market and collect the cash immediately, you would not want to put that there. So oftentimes this would be something that maybe your financial advisor holds, or you may have it in, an E-Trade account or something like that. So we'll go ahead and put 25,000 there. Now, real estate. There is another page that will break down the actual real estate per property. But on this one, what you're going to want to do is put the full value of all of the real estate that you own. So if you own 25% of a property, but maybe it's through an LLC or something, you would want to leave that out. This is for your personal financial statement. So if you own it personally, then you would want to list it here. Now, if you do own it through an LLC, but you own 100% of it, you could go ahead and list it here as well. But if you own a small fraction of real estate with someone else or through a large company, then you'd want to leave it out. So this would be typically your primary residence, maybe any commercial buildings, any rental properties that you own, land, anything like that you'd want to list here. So we'll go ahead and put $1 million. Now your automobiles. Now this would be the full value of any vehicles that you own. So if you own a boat, a truck, and a sports car, you'd want to list all three of them here. So let's just put 50,000 total for the value. Now personal property, this would be something that perhaps you own, maybe jewelry or artwork, furniture, anything like that you would want to list here. Now you can leave this blank, or you can put what the jewelry is or something, or just an estimate. It's not a big deal. We don't typically take a lot of this into consideration, but I'll go ahead and just put 25,000. Now other assets, you can put the value of your other business in here if you would like to. This is typically other assets would be something like that, something you own that's not listed here. So normally if you have an estimated value of a business you own, you can list it here. Or maybe if it's something that's not on here, that typically wouldn't fall into some of these other lines, then you can list it. Now, one question that I get a lot of is, where do you list cryptocurrency? So you'd want to list that as cash on hands or savings accounts, and then you can always break it down as other assets. So as long as it's something that is fairly easy to sell and convert to cash, then you could go ahead and list it up here. Now here, you would want to take all of these items here, and you would add them together, and you would put the total of all of the assets here. Now this is not the net value, this is the actual asset value. So you would add all of these together and put them here. Now we'd go ahead and move over to the accounts payable section. So in this section, you're going to list all of the liabilities on this side. So with accounts payable, typically accounts payable is going to be any credit cards that you've got, or maybe there's something coming due that you need to pay on, you would list it here. Then with notes payable to banks and others, now that's normally going to be any kind of installment accounts. So your student loans, maybe a personal loan that you have, anything like that, you would need to list the full value of all of them, the full debt of all of them combined, you would put here. Now let's go ahead and put 10,000 here. And then now this section is your auto. So this is going to be the full dollar amount of all your auto loans put together. So if you have 3 vehicles and a boat, like we listed over here, you'd want to put the full debt for all 3 of them. So let's go ahead and put 10,000 there. Now this is going to be the combined monthly payment for all of your auto related debts. So if you were paying $400 a month for all of them combined, you would put $400 right here. Now this is going to be your installment account. So if you have anything else, that's an installment. So a lot of times I'll see something related to maybe solar or something like that here. You can also list any, personal loans, student loans. We had that up here as well, but it's basically kind of the same thing. So if you are making monthly payments, you'd want to put it here. So let's go ahead and put 10,000. And then now you'd want to also put the amount of monthly payments. So if you're paying $300 a month, you'd want to put that here. Now that would be all of the installment accounts put together. And then you would put the full monthly payment there. Now loans against life insurance. So again, coming back over here to the life insurance, this would just be for cash surrender value life insurance only. You can borrow against the cash value of the life insurance. So if you've done that, you'd want to put that loan amount here, but this is not something that we often see. So next one would be mortgages on real estate. So this is going to be the total amount of loans and debts that you have against any real estate that you listed over here. So oftentimes you'll have to combine them. So if you have a rental property and maybe also have a personal residence or some land or commercial building, you'd want to list all of it here. So let's go ahead and put 300,000. Any unpaid taxes. Now this would be taxes that are currently due. So if you filed your taxes, or if you have a tax installment plan or something with the IRS, then you would list that amount here. Now this is only if they're currently due. Any other liabilities? So maybe if you've got some other kind of loan, maybe a seller carry note or something on real estate, anything that's personal, you'd want to list here as other liabilities. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take all the items here and you're going to add them together as total liabilities. Now to get your net worth, you are going to subtract the total liabilities, so all of these, from the total assets over here, and then you would leave the amount that's left over, which would actually be your net worth, you would put right here. Now this is it's a little confusing, but this is basically the total liabilities is going to be here. Now, when we get to the source of income section, you're going to go ahead and put in your salary. Now, if you're buying a business, you'd want to include the salary that will remain after you buy the business. So if you're not buying a business and you're looking for another form of SBA financing, you would put any kind of salary that is going to be moving forward. You would put it here. If you've got some investment income, so whether that's from real estate or maybe you've bought stocks or you've got some other form of an investment that you're receiving income for, you'd want to put the annual amount here. Same with the salary, that's going to be your annual amount. Now, real estate income, now that would be if you have investment real estate, you're going to go ahead and put the amount there for the income that you receive, and that would be the net income, not the monthly rent, not your top line revenue. This would actually be the net income that you receive from the real estate. Any other income you'd put here, and then you'd put a description. Feel free to also describe what any of these are. So if it's a salary and you want to put, spouse's salary or Joe's salary at 123 Corporation, then you could list that as well so that you get some idea or you give the underwriter some clarification on it. And then any other contingent liabilities. So you'd want to go through here. If you're a co-borrower on a loan, you can put that here. If you have any legal claims or current judgments, you'd want to put that here. You can list any provisions for federal taxes or any other kind of special debt. Don't often see this part filled out. So moving to the next page. Now this is going to coincide with the first page. So any notes payable to banks and others, you're going to put the name of the note holders. So maybe it is Bank of America. You'd put that there. You'd put the original balance. So not the current balance, but the actual original balance. So maybe it was 12,000. Current balance is 10,000. And then you go ahead and put the payment amount here, $400. And that would be monthly. And then what it's for. So you could put car. Now remember, any of these items will also be something that's going to pop up on your credit report. So if it's going to be on your credit report, or if you're doing a loan with your spouse on their credit report, you'd want to list all of that here. And you'd also want to make sure that it matches the previous page. Now for stocks and bonds, this is one where it can get a little time consuming, or you could run out of space to list all the number of shares and all of the different companies that you have. You can actually just put various here, put various companies, and then the actual market value here and the total value. You can go ahead and do that to make things a little bit easier. But if you own 100 shares of Apple, then you would put 100, Apple, the cost, and then the value there. And again, we're most likely going to get statements for the stocks and bonds, so you can just list the total amount here and then provide the statements. Now moving on to this section. So this is where you would want to list any real estate that you own. So here you could put your primary residence, or you can put, rental property, commercial building, anything like that you would list in this section. Next, you'd want to put the full address, put the date that you purchased it. You can just put the year if that's easier, the original amount that you paid for it, the present market value. So you also want to usually double check what the value is showing, maybe on Redfin or Zillow, and kind of put the value there in an estimate. Then you can put the name and address of the mortgage holder. You can also just put the name. So if Bank of America has the current loan on the property, you could just put B of A here. You could put the account number if you have it. But again, if it's on your credit report, we're going to have it there. But it's good for us to be able to match it up with your credit report. Go ahead and put the mortgage balance. And then this is the amount of payment. You can put per month or per year. Most people just put per month. It's a little easier for us to kind of match it with your credit report. So you'd want to put what's going to be on your credit or what you actually pay per month, and what you're required to pay is what we'd like for you to put here. Status of mortgage, you would put current. If you're behind or in default or something, then obviously put that there, but typically it would be in current. Now on the other section before, you had a list of other personal property or other assets. You would want to describe them here. So you may want to put jewelry, 5,000, baseball cards, 5,000, furnishings, stuff like that you would list here. All right, moving to the next. If you have any unpaid taxes, you would want to list it here. Now again, remember, this is anything that is currently due. You'd want to list it here. Any other liabilities, you would list here as well. And then now your life insurance here. So again, this would be basically if you have cash value life insurance, then you'd want to list it here. If it's just regular term insurance, you don't need to worry about listing it. Now this is a part that a lot of people miss. If you are married, you are required to have your spouse sign this as well. So that's something that gets missed a lot. You'd want to sign it here yourself, and then also have your name, date, social security number. Your spouse would also need to sign it, name, date, social security number. Even if the spouse is not going to be on the loan, they need to sign it as well. So the rest of it is disclosures that you can feel free to read. But again, this is how you'd fill out the personal financial statement.